From 2 wins in 2012 to 7 wins in 2013. How about 12 wins this fall, 2014? Well, hang on. It's Boston College. Steve Addazio, by all accounts, doing an excellent job recruiting his kind of football players and molding his program at BC. But let's hang on there. 7-6 might be an accomplishment for this football team heading into 2014. No Chase Reddick at quarterback this season. He's moved on, as well as, of course, the all-time leading rusher for a single season at BC, Andre Williams. The two main components on offense gone. This program, we believe, is headed in the right direction, but might take a step back in the win column after, again, 7-6 last season, getting embarrassed a bit in the bowl game against Arizona. Mark Rogers TV, as we continue to carve through the schedules across America. We're in the ACC. We're looking at Boston College. Let's see if we can get BC, much like Syracuse, much like some teams in the Big Ten like Maryland and Rutgers, trying to get them to a bowl game. Let's see if we get 6 wins for BC, because it's going to be kind of close. Again, we expect, while the program's seems to be headed in the right direction, could take a step back this season at BC. They've got a young football team in most areas. All right, non-conference. Let's look at it. They open up at UMass on the road. That's in Foxborough at UMass. The Minutemen 2-10 last year, so BC got to win that game. All right, then they jump into ACC play for 1 week against Pitt at home. That's pretty much a toss-up game. You would expect Pitt might be a little bit better than BC this season, a little bit better, but the game at Chestnut Hill for BC, taking on Pitt, so toss-up there on September 5th. That's a Friday night game. All right, and then they take on the USC Trojans, applauding BC for scheduling USC. They got blown out at the LA Coliseum last year, 35-7, when the Trojans were down before they got things rolling under Coach O later in the season, but the defense really smacked around BC, held down the rushing attack, and yeah, USC on the road was brutal last year, but now they come to Chestnut Hill, home and home with USC. BC's got a bit of a chance, but you would expect that's almost an automatic L for the Eagles. Then they've got Maine and Colorado State at home. That game against the Rams out of the Mountain West, very critical for this football team as we look at the totality of the schedule and trying to get wins. Because if they finish 2-2 non-conference, it could be a struggle to get to 6. If they win that game as expected, again, Colorado State at home, they finish out the non-conference slate at 3-1. So again, it's at UMass, USC, Maine, and Colorado State at home non-conference. All right, let's jump back into the ACC. They've got that game at Pitt we talked about, and then they've got a really rough stretch. So for BC, they got to play in the division with Florida State and Clemson. They got assigned to that division, which right now, and I emphasize right now, it doesn't seem like it's ever going to end, that Florida State's always going to be the best, and they should always be the best, and Clemson right there. That's the way it is right now. Florida State by far the best program and team in that conference. Clemson a number 2, then probably Louisville. Then you've got that glut of teams in the Coastal that are right there together. Georgia Tech, Virginia Tech, Duke we saw last season, and some others as well. North Carolina rated in the preseason coaches top 25. So BC gets the difficult draw in its own division with Florida State and Clemson, and now Louisville may turn out to be the third best team in the conference. So BC's got to win this game opening up ACC play. They got to beat the 2 worst teams in the ACC on its schedule, both games on the road, so they can't trip up on the road. They got at North Carolina State to open up October 11th after a bye week. Then they have Clemson, then they go to Wake Forest. So got to win those 2 out of 3. The NC State game, 0-8 NC State in the ACC last season. Then Wake 2 weeks later, again in Winston-Salem. So could lose a game on the road. It wouldn't be a shock, but got to hold serve against the 2 worst teams, potentially the 2 worst teams in the ACC, North Carolina State and Wake. In between, it's Clemson at home. Okay, then they go to Virginia Tech, and if they're going to steal a game, it's going to be, I know it's at Blacksburg, but if you comb through this schedule, because then they finish with Louisville, Florida State, Syracuse. So that's the toughest portion of the schedule by far, the toughest 3 consecutive weeks for this BC program, taking on Virginia Tech on the road, then Louisville at home, and at Tallahassee against Florida State. They do have the bye week before Florida State, but regardless, don't know that that's going to help too much except to get a little bit healthy before they have to take on the Noles. Then they finish up November 29th against Syracuse. So the two must-wins in conference, Wake Forest and North Carolina State on the road. The two toss-ups would be Pitt and Syracuse, both at home. Then you would think that they're a substantial underdog in the other four games, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Florida State, and Clemson, especially the three division games, Louisville, Florida State, and against the Louisville Cardinals. Yeah, and Clemson as well. So there you go for BC. 3-1 non-conference. This is the formula. Then they probably go 3-5 in the conference. Got to beat the two doormats, split a game, Pitt, Syracuse, and then you're probably going to lose the other four against the heavyweights, Virginia Tech, Louisville, Clemson, and Florida State. That gets you to 6-6 and another bowl game. And in losing one of the more dynamic players in the history of the program, Andre Williams, plus your senior quarterback, that could be a good formula and a very nice season for BC in establishing itself as a bowl team, a postseason team in Steve Addazio's second season at Boston College. All right, Eagles fans, let's step up. Let's talk BC football and your expectations for 2014 right here on Mark Rogers TV.